morning. Thank you for joining us on NTV today. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Remember, this is your one-stop shop for all matters current affairs, both within and without the country, and we shall keep you updated on the same. And speaking of which, the topmost story and has been trending for the last couple of days has to do with education, and the government is considering edging out the boarding school system so as to allow parents to better monitor their children by virtue of being in day schools. Now, this is according to Basic Education Principal Secretary Kipkalya, who told the National Assembly's Education Committee that parents have left their responsibility to teachers. But Sharon Baranga looks into the plans the PS says the government has as it seeks to address issues that have been affecting schools.
The dark, ashy remains of what was once a dormitory for 250 students are a testament of the school fire's craze visiting Nasokol Girls High School in West Pokot County. The fire is said to have started around 7 a.m. when students were in for their morning preps. The disturbing incidents and their replication across various parts of the country has yet again seen efforts and proposals of interventions.
The future of any country is day schooling. This is one of the countries where obsession of boarding schools is so high.
This proposal is a build-up of what had already started being piloted. Last year, the Ministry of Education announced its plans of introducing day wings to some boarding schools in Nairobi, listing 19 institutions that will be part of the first phase of the project this year. Even with plans to increase the number of schools with day wings, the first group of Form 1 students joining day wings reported to their respective schools. PS Kipkalya says the aim of this approach is to enable parents to closely monitor their children.
We would want to increase opportunities in day schooling so that we as parents can also get an opportunity of engaging our children and making sure that these children are adequately taken care of.
Kipkalya, who appeared before the Parliamentary Education Committee, says that the localization of head teachers will continue as scheduled. This is because teachers are public servants and therefore they can work from any part of the country.
We are not about to allow our children to guide us on who will run our schools. We shall allow Teacher Service Commission to do that which the Constitution expects them to do, post teachers to schools, and avail managers of schools. We have never been consulted from where we come from when a new county commissioner is being posted to a county. We've not had anybody saying that we've not been consulted on the new county commissioner or the new OCBD to a police station. Nay, we shall for sure not consult our students when it comes to who runs our schools.
So far, 139 students linked to unrest in schools have been arrested. And the government insists that parents will meet the costs of restoring damaged property. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Well, many have reacted to that suggestion of scrapping off day schools or other boarding schools for day schools so that parents can be more engaged in their children's lives. And we went out on the streets and this is what most had to say.
Having day schools is not a solution, but we should engage the stakeholders plus even the students. Let them tell us what is the itch.
All of us passed through boarding school know that when there's good discipline, boarding school is the best. So I accept that as a parent, let's reintroduce the cane. If we discipline our children, because that's about their lives, let's not spare the road.
Wazazi wanalini upande watoto wenye hataki mtoto yake aguzwe na mwalimu, inakuwa court case sababu mtoto amekuwa discipline na mwalimu. Anafanya mtoto anajua at the end of the day niko na backup ya mzazi.
To say that schools be converted to day school, it will affect the marks. All of us passed through boarding school know that when there's good discipline, boarding school is the best. So I accept that as a parent, let's reintroduce the cane.
Habari ya kuweka mtoto boarding school inachangia mambo mengi kwa sababu mzazi ana muda mdogo sana. Maana kuna wengine hata wameenda Ulaya ameacha mtoto kwa majukumu ya mwalimu. Yeye amejisahau kwamba ni pati yake ya kufanya nini? Ya kuongoza watoto wake. Boarding ikiwa itakuwa na security ya kutosha na walimu wakae pale waweze kuwa monitor vizuri is the best, maanake atmosphere inakuwa ni ya kusoma.
Boarding schools nyingi wameinvest so much on building the dormitories and other facilities. So if we turn them to be day schools, sasa hazitatumika, maana sasa hizo dorms zitatumika kufanyia nini?
Across the country about that suggestion to scrap off boarding schools for day schools so that parents can actually be more involved in the families or rather in the lives of the children. And we'll continue following up on the same even as that topic is debated upon throughout the day and throughout the coming days. And speaking of which, we're staying matters education, and even as we look at this, there are many questions that are coming to the fore. Are we dealing with issues whose symptoms, or are these symptoms of other issues that are probably have not been dealt with time? And saying that delinquency is not a preserve of only high schools, is this what has been carried on to our higher institutions of learning? Well, to try and answer these questions and delve deeper into these matters, in studio with me is Edward Kipkalya. He is a student leader at Baraton University. Thank you for joining us. And then we have Dr. Gitonga Siriaka. You are a senior lecturer at Embu University. Yes. Thank you for making time. We also have Brightstar Kasyoka. She's also a student leader at Maseno University. Thank you for your time. And we have Margaret Mbuthi, who is a psychologist. Thank you for making time. So to start with, let's react to what we've just seen. They want to scrap boarding schools so that students and their parents can have more time together and maybe get rid of some of these vices. Do you agree, Edward?
Okay, thank you so much. First, I want to say that the system, the new change is good. I support it. Personally, I've been to boarding schools, and I've been through the process. And you find when they're changing now this system, I think it's important for the government to include the stakeholders, because if the government are going to dictate on this matter, then you'll find students will resist and it will bring a chaos, because you see from the reaction of the public, some of them, they are not happy with it, given that I remember if it was in our time, it could be a problem, because you find some of us, like me, we had to travel far to get a quality education. So you find we have to consider such matters when you're tackling this issue.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you told me earlier that you went to a boarding school in high school.
Yeah.
You are in your final year of university and an outgoing student leader.
Yeah.
You turned out well.
Yeah.
Okay, so does that qualify or negate what the ministry is trying to do here?
I think from my perspective, you find if you see, it's not everyone who goes through the system well. You see the output, and also you consider also the input. You find many go through the system, but few come out of the system properly. So we have to focus more on the giving the solution that provides a more output to the nation, which will force our students to be more competitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Brightstar Kasyoka, you're also a student leader. You went to boarding school. Do you agree with what the ministry is trying to do?
Okay, one, for me, I wouldn't support them scrapping off because one thing is, I believe that a child turns out depending on the situations around them. So one thing is, if you scrap off high schools, there are students who don't have families. Where do you expect them to be with those family members? I believe what can work for a child is what a parent should go for. If your child can turn out very well in high school, in a boarding school, then that's fine. So I think this is a decision that should be left solely to the parents. It shouldn't be a decision that comes up. If you want to take your child to a private school, fine. If you want to take them to a boarding school, fine. But then turning them to be like making it a mandatory for them to go to a day school, I don't support it. Because one, for me, I'm from Kitui County, but I went to a school in Thika. So how do you expect me to come all the way to Nairobi every day and every evening so that I be with my parents? And also most of these children, if you interact with most young people, they don't have families, and school work family for them. So if a child has a family and they can go home and they are being affected by these things happening in school, then the parents can remove them and bring them home. But if you force them to come, what happens to this child who only has a school? And then also one thing about the school gives a conducive environment for some students. Like for me, I was in a very good school and it gave me such a conducive environment for me. So, and I wouldn't have gotten that at home. Some homes are broken. Some homes are broken. Parents are drunkard. Some families are very irresponsible. You don't have a mom. You don't have a dad. And then you're forced to go. So you are actually affecting the mental health of that child. You were just sending them, at least in school for 3 months, if you stay in school for 3 months, and then they go home for the 4th month, at least the 3 months they have somewhere to sleep. You know, school offers somewhere to sleep. They have food. They have everything that they might not get at home.
So some stability.
Yeah, some stability is offered in school to those children who come from broken homes.
Okay.
So I think we should give them a choice. It shouldn't be a forced.
All right, Dr. Gitonga Siriaka, you are an educationist. Yes. They say it takes a village to bring up a child. Exactly. So clearly there's more to this than meets the eye.
Yes. I think, thank you Gladys for having us this morning. I love possibly two different opinions. One, I would have loved the CS and the PS to give us the underlying factors that has led to that decision, because I'm sure that's not the only way they will use to address the issues that are affecting schools. It could be just one of the ways. As the students have said, it's true. Many children in this country have come from troubled families, seriously troubled. And school is a safe haven for their schools, and they're providing what the children need. But there are also schools that are not safe havens. I think in the last 20, 15 years, what we have seen in schools is huge numbers of children that are admitted in a school that was ideally fashioned for 500, 400. You go to this school, you find they have about 1,000 children, 1,200 boys in a school. The teacher, the principal, is ideally meant to play the role of local parentis in the place of a parent. It's certainly not possible to be able to provide that in the kind of setups that we have. So if indeed the Ministry of Education wants to have children day schools, it doesn't mean that those them in a day school, I'm against it. But if it is to fashion the day schools to be as good as the boarding schools, but then give, as the students are saying, allow parents. There are some parents, Lily, who really do not have what it takes. And I'm not exempting them. My children went to day schools. I love day schools because as a parent, you work with your child. You define who your child is. But we are also living in a context where parenting is elusive. Many of us, schooling is a big burden for many parents, unfortunately. And because we don't factor it as one of the parenting activities, so that I know if my children are in school, whether they're in boarding or day school, this is one of my key responsibility to find out what is happening. So my view is that the administration give us other, why? Is this the only way? If it's the only way, then I wouldn't support it. But if it is one of the ways of addressing the difficulties, then I think it's okay if it's one of the ways. Again, the ministry should also tell us what kind of parental empowerment programs are they suggesting? Because you are transferring the problem, kind of, you know, it's not that you're solving the problem, you're kind of saying, who says the children cannot ban day schools? Children are not just banning dorms. What is the underlying reason why children are banning this very unfortunate thing, extremely unfortunate that is happening today, given the advancements that we have made as a nation? And I think the underlying factors, possibly, Gladys, would be what would help us as a nation to know. But I would really want to hear from the ministry, what are the other ways of addressing the problem other than just increasing and supporting day schools?
Okay, Margaret, let me reel you into the conversation. The PS said that he believes that parents have left their responsibilities to teachers. Do you agree?
Thanks, Gladys, for having me. You know, I'm laughing because I'm listening to what the students are saying, and this has always been the argument a lot of times. Everyone wants to shift blame and place it on another person, but we really don't want to take responsibility based on who we are as a stakeholder in this particular situation, because we have the teachers. Do they have a role? Yes. Do they have a responsibility? Yes. The parents, do they have a role? Do they have a responsibility? Yes. What about, you know, even the PTA and everyone else in that school? I think we need to start by, can we all learn to take responsibility of the part that we are supposed to be playing in this whole thing? Have the parents failed? If you ask me as someone who is working with young people at the university, I would say yes, to an extent. There's what they have not done. And part of what they have not done is that we're bringing up children. We are talking about, you know, and with all due respect to, you know, the organizations that are pushing the agenda of child rights and everything right and everything right, you know, rights and rights and rights, and it's a good debate. I mean, it's brought us where we are. But then again, are we teaching children to be responsible and to learn to take responsibility of their actions? Are boarding schools really the problem? Or do we have children in these schools who are not well prepared, who are ill-equipped to be in a boarding school? They don't have the requisite skills, they don't have the very basic of life skills that they need. Do they understand when they're coming to Form 1, what kind of induction are we giving these young people about the 4 years ahead? What are we telling them about what it is that is expected of them? Yet we can always push the blame and put it on the teachers and say the teachers have failed. But Gladys, where do these children come from? They are coming from a home, they are coming from a community, they are coming from a society, they are coming from a faith congregation. Can we all take responsibility? Can we work towards having children who are well prepared in terms of having the necessary skills that they need in order for them to fit in certain contexts and in certain situations? I mean, my children went to boarding school and I think they are fine. So the question is it really boarding school, or what is the real issue? I think we are just looking at it from the surface level. We need to ask ourselves, what is wrong? Is it really that they are confined in a specific place, or are there other issues that we are not looking at?
So again, asking the right questions and you'll get the right answer. And speaking of which, watching students go on a rampage, you know, burning dorms, some to an extent where the minister has been to the school to inspect it, and the moment they leave, they actually burn a dorm. That is making a statement to an extent. What does that make you feel, especially for somebody who's gone through the system and looking back?
Okay, thank you. You find, personally, I feel bad, and it's something that I don't want it to go on. But looking back, I find that tracing it back, you find the first incident that happened, it was around in 1907, whereby it happened at Maseno School. And you find that's where this all started. And during the years, you find that we've heard about the ministry setting up some task force to investigate the matter. And so far we've had like 7 of them. The latest one being in 2014. And you find that all these task force bring in recommendations about what the government has to do on these matters. But you find the government are selective. They take some recommendations and the others, they leave it. And I think that's why we still have this problem. A good report, I saw it was the one that was done previously in the past year by the Commission of Investigation Department Research Institute. You find the research on the arson attacks. And one of the measures they gave out was that they should involve stakeholders, and also they should try and reduce the gap between the second term and the third term. Because you find that's the period whereby students mostly have a lot of schedules. You find that's the time they have examinations, that's the time they have sports, and you find it brings a workload of fatigue in students. And so there was that suggestion that was placed forth. But the government has not done anything concerning that. And this was 2 years ago, where we had around over 130 schools attacked by arson. And this is something that the government really needs to concentrate on. The task force are doing their work. They come up with solution. But the transition between solving the problem by what is given is where it's bringing us to this situation.
Okay, Brightstar, when you hear the ministry say the students are lighting up the dorms because they are afraid of exams, you are in a boarding school, is that a legit reason?
Okay, one thing I believe is for any student or any person to come up and riot or start burning things, then there's a reason behind it. And when they say fear of exams, I've never been affected by fear of exams myself. So but then most students fear because they are not adequately prepared. So I feel, okay, that's not the major reason. It might be one of them, but I also feel there are other issues underlying here. As she said, when a child is built when you are young. So if you come from a home and then you come to a university, you have issues that are built inside you, and you just and then people are just giving you a lot of work to do, and then maybe this child needs more support and love, and then the only thing, actually in most high schools, the only thing they focus is the classwork. But that's not what makes a human being. A human being is made up of so many things. There are physical activities. You should go for games. You should do drama. You should do singing. But if we focus so much on the education, like just give them a lot of work, and then by the time they realize, and then as she said, there are a lot of issues here, so such that you can have 4 months in school and you are learning so much. Then you realize the semester exams are next week. And you've not studied, definitely you're going to riot, you know. And then also things like drug abuse, there are the issues that are in these students that are, because one thing, okay, I have so much that I'm trying to say and now it's overwhelming me. So one thing is, if a child has so much in mind, like you have drug abuse, you're abusing drugs, and then you don't have someone who is guiding you properly, apart from the education, you might just go and riot. So I feel as much as exam is one of them, there are also other issues. And then also the workload, as you said, there's so much work for students to do. And even me, I get tired very fast myself. So if I keep on having so much, I can get worked up and riot as well. And also the peer pressure with so many students. Other students are doing this and then this. So if you've been idle for quite some time and then you see your friend rioting, you're going to riot.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, all right. Very well put. I mean, Dr. Gitonga, seeing the dormitories go up in flames, is that a symptom of underlying issues? And if it is, what are we missing?
Definitely, it's really, it saddens educators like me to imagine my child or my neighbor's child or a child I see in church can actually set a dormitory ablaze, and that's where they sleep. And I think when I listen to the students, I'm thinking where we have failed is on the affective domain of education, because education is supposed to address a couple of things, but one of them is the affective, the humanness, the person, me, caring, loving, compassionate. You know, a person who is able to nurture the environment because I also benefit from it. But it also has the cognitive aspects, the intellectual aspects. And I think we have pursued that so much at the cost of the human, the child, the student, who is loving, who is caring, who is approachable. A student who knows that I am expected to do this because it is good for me. You know, when a student really is burning the dorm, they really don't see themselves in it. And I can tell you, it's an underlying psychological problem. By the way, Gladys, we have very many good students. It's not every child who is bad. In fact, sometimes I asked my students, and Margaret was one of my students, actually, how many bad children do you know? Because that's where we should begin. When I walk in the streets, I can give testimony of good students. But we also have students that are very needy. Brightstar talks about the pressure, and Margaret talked about all of us taking our role. As a good teacher, can I go to a class in the morning and look at students and I'm able to tell this child needs more than mathematics. They need me as a parent more than mathematics. They need me more than the English I'm teaching because of the way they present themselves. We call it entry behavior. If a child is stressed, they don't hide. Students don't hide the difficulties. A student who is harassed, even the way they groom themselves, the way they respond to you in class, the way the energy levels. So if this student is already packaged with issues of discouragement, then, and a teacher comes who is supposed to actually be identifying these children and telling this, guiding us, we have a problem with this child, what can we do? Because one issue I have a problem with is how it escapes the system, that a group of boys and girls can actually organize and silently burn a dorm. While I know as a country we have invested heavily on intelligence, a school as a community, it beats my understanding that a group of 3, 4, 5 boys can actually set a school ablaze, and it takes so long to investigate. Does it mean there are no signs?
Yeah.
And sometimes I've had cases, I've worked with schools and I've supported school and psychoeducational programs. And our teachers say that this boy was always like this, calls for help. And you need them to intervene as early as possible. So that I find it's kind of a web. Sometimes, you kind of feel helpless, but I think there's something educators can do. I teach education psychology. That's my area of specialization. And you cannot teach children who are troubled. You can only push. They will not thrive. If they are not learning to, the environment is not supportive. And I agree with Margaret absolutely. As a parent, I also know my child. I didn't find it fascinating when a parent comes for disciplinary issues and you are told your child has done this and they are surprised. It's like, my child can't do that. Then if you're surprised by your child, then this child will surprise the entire system. Because as a parent, you need to hand over your child to a teacher who is able to support your child grow. Now, so if the teacher doesn't, now this child also comes from a church. For example, most of us come from congregations or religious faith organizations. Sometimes these children are sent home and they are told, bring back a letter to show that you went for help. Now this child goes to the pastor or comes to me as a counselor and I write, testifying that this child is good. So really, I'm seeing a bigger, deep-rooted problem. And I think it has been tied to values, it has been tied to character, but I think we are a nation of people that are just angry and just doing things. The way we talk, the way we present ourselves, it's very hard to hear good news. Very hard, because schools are burning, but there are many schools that are not burning. Some boys might burn their school thinking every other school is going to burn. It's not true. There are good children in schools. They are prepared for examinations. They will pass and get good jobs. So if you as a child think you can burn yours, I like what Professor Magoha said. We'll still do exams because that's our responsibility. But as a nation, we have a responsibility to build our children to the kind of people we want to give to the world. And that responsibility is where we are saying, children need to attach to me. Even my students want to work with me and know who I am, what I do. Do I have that time as a scholar to be able to share my life with these students so that at the end of the day I can say I've ushered a good student to the field? Many of us cannot even give testimonies of our very students. And in fact, when you see them, they have come up and again you are surprised. Oh, that was a very bad student. What happened? But you see, when that child is brought to me, I really challenge us, especially those of us who have been given the responsibility of teaching. It's a great responsibility. Just remember, it's not about my psychology. It can be theoretical. It's about my ability to share. Because I'm good and I believe I've got something to give, I'm able to use it to transform a student like this one to become a greater student. And I think that's where we are. So the issue of burning, we can isolate those children and provide them with appropriate support.
Okay, now clearly what I hear is that all the stakeholders have dropped the ball, and it's time we took responsibility and looked beyond the surface. And when we come after the break, Margaret, I'd like you to speak on the fact that just the other day, and this has been the norm now, that students are normally confined into school so that we also negate cheating. So is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What are we doing to these students, you know? And we'll have the answers to the same right after this break. Stay with us. headlines, some of them a lot of delinquency behavior in the high schools, but we are also trying to see the correlation between the high schools and into the higher school of institutions, because there are also cases that are coming from there. But before we get to the higher institutions, let's still delve into the conversation we heard earlier on. Margaret, before we went into break, the question was, we now have a system that says from the second term, the students are confined in a school, they are not allowed to see visitors from outside, so that we can negate the cheating. My question is this a good thing for the students' whole being, or are we seeing some of these things being as a pushback to some of the systems being put in place?
Right. Thanks, Gladys. Confining, for me the question here is to everyone. When we lock up the gates and lock the students in, what we are basically trying to do is minimize the external interruptions in school. You know, the people coming in, and maybe that way the ministry has been successful, ONEC has been successful, you know, in trying to curb the cheating, you know, the routes and the avenues of cheating. Maybe it was through people coming in and going out. However, my concern is, what about the internal noises and the internal interruptions and distractions internally? What do children need when we are talking about exam preparation? One, children, have they, it's one thing to imagine that because I joined Form 1, that it is obvious and it is expected that I am thinking all through Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, that I'll eventually get to Form 4. That's what we all want to imagine. However, how well am I prepared for the journey to Form 4? Why is it that in second term, when the students are sitting their mock exams, is when we get to hear the things that we are hearing about? Is there a possibility, and a very, you know, slim possibility, that the students have just woken up to the fact that, wait a minute, the main exam, the determinant is just around the corner? Supposing we had tried to sensitize them from day one when they came, and we are doing a countdown and we are telling them what happens in Form 1 first week is going to come when you're doing your first exam, when you're sitting your KCSE. How about if we decided to find out what is it that really causes exam anxiety, and we try and build their capacities to handle exams and to manage the exam anxiety? Because if the talk going around is about the mock, then that basically means it's about issues to do with the exam anxiety. Are we building their capacities? Do they have the skills? How do they manage that? Secondly, are we putting too much pressure on our young children, that you can only get an A, you can only get a B+, and if you have anything less than a C+, then you have failed? And so the pressure is for me to get that A, to get that B+. But the system does not recognize what are the innate capacities that I have. Is our focus only on academic, like Dr. Siriaka said, and we are forgetting other aspects about these students?
Okay, let me come to Edward. You were in high school and you never took a march and lit up a dormitory in protest, even though there was all the pressure around you to perform. The question would be, what made you make the right choice? What is it about the environment you were in that nurtured you to choose the virtues as opposed to the vices?
First, I want to say that I was in a Christian school, and to just take you back a little bit, you find, looking from that question from another perspective, you find my foundation of education was different. My parents used to tell me it's not all about getting good grades in school. It's all about you learning and using that daily daily lessons into practice. Because you find we are losing our focus here. We are stressing too much on examinations instead of teaching students that they are supposed to get knowledge from those lessons they study and apply it into to the world and their daily livings. And now all that everyone is talking about when I go to school is about passing, getting grade A's and doing well. But you find what I was instilled with is that you find you should not look at education as something like it's a do or die. Look at it as if it's something that is going to help you in future. And I think that's what made me sail through. And I tried also in high school, because I got into a leadership position in high school from Form 1. And you find I mentored students, and we used to have daily lessons whereby we used to encourage students that it's not all about getting good grades. It's all about learning and applying that knowledge. Our principal was very good. He used to commend a lot of students who got D+ because of their characters, C+ because of their of what they are doing in sports, and you find that really brought an all-win scenario in the school. And I think that's what our schools really need to do
right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Brightstar, that's a very good perspective. Would you attest to the same, and do you believe that maybe the students are crying out for help, that somebody hears that point of view?
Okay, Gladys, thank you. One, I believe in giving real life examples, and sometimes, most of the time, I use my story. Like for me, I grew up with my grandparents, for instance, and it was a broken home. But when I was a kid, my grandfather used to tell me that I was going to be great. He used to tell me that since I was a small kid, and of course a lot of people didn't believe in me. I was this tiny kid with some funny voice, you know, all those kind of things. But my grandfather used to tell me, you have to do the right thing. And I remember it built me, because even on Saturdays, I would go to the library as opposed to other children. I would just go to the library and read magazines and read, you know, I think the formative years, that's the most important part in a child's life. Because and as much as we were suffering, I didn't have much. I didn't have clothes, I didn't have shoes, but I had my grandfather to impact that in me, that I was going to be great. You know, and it built me, and up to today, the values that my grandfather invested in me, they are still in me. And even in campus, I wouldn't do something that I don't want my grandfather to know that I've done. And that then built me since primary up to today. It was like, and even when I've been so fearful with some of these things that my grandfather warned me, like because he was so strict. Like as a parent, what are you telling your child? You know, if you tell a child when she is 4 years or 5 years that you have to be great and you should not involve yourself in drugs, you should not involve yourself in morality, you should be immoral, you should be moral, sorry. That child will grow with that. But then we have a system where children grow up being told nothing. I mean, people don't build. I believe in children very much. Like if you build a young person, they will grow with that. So you have a situation where a child has gone to primary. The society didn't care about them that much, you know, in primary, and no one tells this child you can do this. And the children are talented differently. I can speak very well, but another child can play football, another child can sing. So if we focus on this exam, and then the exam phobia comes because we focus on it on now Form 3. Since Form 1, you've not prepared this child that in Form 4 you're going to do an exam. You know, I think it's also a problem with the society, and also that pressure. Like when I was in Form 3, Form 4, I thought exams were the end of life. If I don't pass, then I'm not going to be anything. Then you get out here, you have a child with, you have an A or a B+, then you are with another child who has a D+. You know, like exam is not all that big thing that the society tries to put it. It's just a phase that you pass. Like let the child know that you do this exam, give it your best, and then if you don't pass, it's fine. And also I thank my high school teachers very much. There's one teacher called Mr. Ali, and I got depressed in Form 3. But that teacher told me, go in this mathematics, you've not really been concentrating because of your depression, but go do this exam. If you get a D, fine. Just do your best. And I went to that mathematics paper, and I remember I did 2 questions in mathematics Form 4 KCSE. But I was not worried because this teacher told me, you do your best. I mean, if you get a D, fine. If you get, and I didn't get that D, of course. But I think the society needs to tell children that exams are not all that big. Don't magnify them. Because once you do, like even when I'm coming here, if I start talking, I will get tensed. Because I'm on in TV. You know, it's such a big thing, I'm in the TV. But when I'm talking normally with my friend, I will not get tense. Yeah. So I feel we need to teach children that exams are not all that big. You pass them. I mean, the world has so much to offer. Some of us, Churchill himself doesn't have a degree, but he's doing so well in media. So, I mean, it's not all about passing and going to university and doing law and doing media. You can also do weaving. and you be the best salonist in the country. Like, we need to teach children that you can do other things in your life, and then we shouldn't focus on these big careers, law, medicine and all that. We were all not born to be doctors, we were not born to be lawyers, we were all not born to have an A grade. All of us have different talents, all of us have different, you can be anything, you can be a footballer, you can be a musician, you can be whatever. So let's teach our children that it's okay, whatever you are talented in, focus on it. If you get a D and you can do well in accounting or another area, go do it. Yeah.
Great perspective there. Dr. Gitonga will be coming to you to just answer this question. When you see some of these vices being taken up in high schools or in our students, both in high schools or higher institutions of learning, is it a reflection of a society? And that's an answer we'll get to right after we cross over to Bernard Ojwang, who is in Migori and is also following up on the education conversation. Bernard?
Well, thank you very much, Gladys. It has been said that Kenya universities hostels have been turned into dens of drugs and dens of crime and drugs. And as you can remember, some 2 months ago, Commission for University Education tabled a report to the Ministry of Education that showed how universities have become hotspots for crime and terror, and whereby hostels have been turned into hideouts for criminals. And now we are just going to talk to some of the students here in Rongo, just to tell us what the main contributing factors to this. Well, welcome, my friend. You'll just start by telling us your name. What do you think is the main contributing factor to this?
George Kalya Boguta, a student at Jaramogi University of Science and Technology. I take computer forensic. It is true that the major contributing factor to this menace is students failing their responsibility, and the parents also failing their responsibility to monitor their children or their students whichever place they are. Yes.
And what do you think should be done, you as a student?
I think first thing is that our parents should take our responsibility in whichever place we are. This will really make us to settle down in whichever areas we are studying, so that we avoid thinking of any extra illegal means of looking for more finances that can sustain our lives in school.
Yes. What do you think makes these students, at least somebody is coming from their home, as a disciplined student coming from their home, while joining university after 2 months, 2 years, is somebody else?
Just like we've said, influence is a major factor that might make somebody to change his character or her character. Another thing is that the failure by parents to provide for their students. This is the major factor, because each and every person needs money that can make her or him to take care of his life or her life in whichever place she is or she is. Yes.
In terms of employment, do you think these are the main contributing factors whereby many university students, they don't secure jobs? They usually say Kenya, there's no job. Or they lack job opportunities here in Kenya. Do you think this is the main reason why they don't get this job?
It is true. It is the main factor, because we have a say that goes, once a thug is always a thug. Once a criminal will always be a criminal. These students, when they graduate from whichever institutions they are, employers fear employing them just because they might decide and bring the unwanted character into the organization, which might spoil the reputation of the organization. I think that is the major factor, because they fear employing them. They can incorporate their bad characters into the organization which they are just about to be employed. Yes.
Well, Gladys, I was talking there to one of the students here, is Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University students, and now I'm going to talk to one of the parents here. Just tell us what does he think about this issue here, this issue of schools, universities, students involving themselves into crimes at the university. Welcome, Mzee.
Thank you.
What do you think, you as a parent, what do you think about it? What do you think should be done, at least to solve this?
First of all, my name is Josh Rain. As a parent, I think the major point is influence. Because I send my children to school, to university. Then the influence is very great there, that level. Yeah, that's the main factor.
Do you think it is discouraging, maybe you as a parent?
Yeah, it is a burning issue. Yeah, it is very burning and very touchy, when you send your child to school to study, then at the end of the day, she or he is influenced, drug, and what have you. Yeah.
It is being said that parents have forgotten their responsibilities. This is why these students, once they come out of maybe from your house, maybe going to school, they get involved into this kind of crime.
I think the major point is that the drug barons should be taken care of first. The drug barons, because how does this drug get into the students at hostels? Yeah. So the major point is that the government should tackle the drug barons, and then, as has been said, the influence is very great. Yes.
Gladys, you just heard from them. The student there was saying parents have forgotten their duties, and the parent here is also saying that they have not forgotten their duties. It's only that the government should come at least to deal with this issue of drug abuse, whereby drug barons should be dealt with amicably. Back to you.
Thank you, Bernard Ojwang, speaking to us from Migori, actually specifically Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University, and a good comments there from a student and also a parent, so that they also chip in into this conversation where it looks like there's a lot of blame game. The students don't want to take responsibility. The parents are saying it's the teachers are saying it's the parents. I mean, at the end of the day, the question is: are we asking the right questions, and are we finding the right solutions for these issues? Now, before we crossed over to Migori, Dr. Gitonga, I had asked you, when you see these delinquencies, the vices, whether in high school or higher schools, or rather higher learning institutions, are these symptoms of what's happening or reflection of what society has become?
Thank you, Gladys. Children and young people are a reflection of the state of the nation. They reflect the character of the people of the land. That's a reality. My child will sing my song. If I teach them from day one, the song I sing is a song the child is likely to sing. The way I dress is likely to influence my child. There won't be influence outside. But the things, then we say the home, the boundaries of the home, how well are they defined? So that if my child goes outside that boundary, they are able to know, now I'm outside. The other thing is that children don't feel very insecure in homes that don't have defined boundaries. If a family doesn't define its boundaries properly, faith, academics, morals, then the child in that home is so insecure that they will find security in others. So that if my child feels that I'm not able to affirm them, I'm not strong in affirming them, then they look for somebody to affirm them. So yes, it is a significant problem in the society, and beginning with the homes that we have. And so when you hear the students saying parents need to follow us, I see the parenting dilemma, and a serious dilemma, because a parent of a preschool is completely involved. A parent of a primary years child is completely involved, picking and dropping, checking them in boarding schools. When they take them to high school, parents are still involved. We have parent clinics. We have what is parental involvement? It's finding out and following up. And if the child is suspended, I report. But now the challenge is, how do we define parental involvement when the students have gone to the university? How do I get involved in my son's academic affairs? And I remember for my children, or our children, what we said is that for us to even pay your fees, we need to have to see the interactions between us and the university. How are you doing? For us, that will be very important for us to continue engaging. So where I think we have a problem in the universities is that parents, the channel for parental involvement is not clearly defined. I know the Commission for University Education emphasizes, and especially among the standards and guidelines, that there must be room for parents to be involved. In fact, during inspections, universities are asked, how do you involve parents? And you know, how do you involve parents other than during graduation in the university? It's a big issue. Parents who are involved in the universities are parents whose children have discipline issues. When they are expelled or suspended, parents are actually invited. Rarely the psychologists will tell us, even when we discover they have discipline issues or the psychological issues, like for example, a student gives birth, we don't look for their parents. They sort themselves out and come back to class. So the dilemma of involving parents at university level is a little confusing, because where we have come from as a nation, the moment you got into the university, you are considered as an adult. You have formed certain behavioral characteristics that will propel you to success. But now you don't expect, really it shocks a parent when you're told your son who got a good grade, joined a good university, is actually doing drugs. You're wondering, what has gone wrong? Does it mean this child was not really very well prepared for the university? Possibly yes, because now the life within the university itself is complex for students. I can tell you it is not what we think it is, and most of us will bear witness. Students don't have good sleeping places because it's no longer the prerogative for the government to provide accommodation. So you can find a place where you want to sleep. Students are never provided proper meals, so you sort yourself. Either you eat what they call ngumus and stuff like that. It's survival. Students are not provided, the support systems that are supposed to be provided to make a student in the university feel, yes, this is where I want them to be. It's lacking. And the moment an individual lacks basics, Maslow tells us, when you are not sure where you're going to sleep is a good place, when you have not fed properly, when you don't feel secure, it's highly unlikely that you are going to thrive as expected. So the society itself, even if the government is not providing accommodation, where these students are staying, the universities are trying to make sure that I can get to contact the landlord. But then I don't have a place for bargaining, because after all, I need my student to be accommodated. So I think, Gladys, is a whole complex issue. And so the parenting dilemma after post-secondary education is a big thing. And I think for me as a parent, what I would encourage parents to do, at least we are saying as psychologists, until they are able to take care of themselves, you are responsible for them. You are the one who is paying their bills. What is the role of the community that is surrounding where the students are? What is their role? Then we have the politicians or the decision makers. What is your role in as far as ensuring this child is properly supported? And so those particular dilemmas make it extremely difficult. But again, not every student is not thriving. That's what this lady said. I am thriving. He is thriving. Because we might be thinking few are struggling and make it appear as if it's all bad. So the question is, how do we isolate those who are struggling? And as institutions, we offer them the support so that they can come on this other side.
Okay, Margaret Mbuthi, it is very clear, again, as we said, a child is brought up by a community, and various people have dropped the balls along the way. And I like the way the conversation is evolving from high school to the higher institutions of learning, because it's a ripple effect. If you do not take care of it at the high school level, it will manifest in the universities or institutions of higher learning. So, Margaret, going forward, what are some of those things you probably have come across as a psychologist who works in a university that you can clearly see are carryovers from high school?
Okay. Let me take you a little back. When you see children, when they are graduating from, is it the kindergarten or the nursery, and they are going to class 1 the following year, they even have a big thing. You know, I've seen them wearing little gowns, and it's like a graduation and all that. And at that point, the nursery school teacher does a very good thing. They really prepare them. They take them through a very, very good preparation, at least for the schools that I have seen, for the class 1 that they are going. And so even as they come back to school in January, they know they are no longer babies, they are moving on into something else. Now, that preparation ends when they get into class 1, because we don't have a very, very, very good preparation program for class 8s going to Form 1.
So the transition process is
the
wanting.
transition process is not smooth, and it's, you know, what was done well stops at some point, and it is not continued. So when then they come to secondary school, and then secondary school, what is life in secondary school? It's about a bell that tells you wake up, move from here, go there, go there. You don't even need a watch, because the bell tells you what you're supposed to do. It's, you know, it's kind of doing all the thinking for you. And then your timetable is controlled. You don't have a choice to choose subjects that you want to take. You know, everything is programmed for you. You sleep at this time, you wake up at this time, you eat at this time, and everything else. Now, bang, finish your KCSE, and you're out there for about 2 months or 3 months. No one tells you what you're supposed to do with yourself within these 2-3 months. Then you're left out there, and the assumption is you've grown up. Okay, tell me how a 17-year-old is a grown-up. You're expected to grow up. Then before you know it, then you find yourself in this big institution with thousands. You came from hundreds, and now you come to thousands. There's no bell. There's no one who chooses for you the units.
There's no prefect.
There's no prefect. You have to go to a portal, so you have to find your way around to even know what units are being offered. No one tells you go to Form 1X. This is the class. You have to look for the timetable that is in the student portal to even know where is the room, the lecture hall. You don't even know the lecturers. They appear and they disappear. Yet, they tell you, if you want to see me, come and consult at this time. They are course advisors in some universities. You have to find your way around. I'll tell you, Gladys, majority of the students joining universities today are not ready. They're not ready. They're not even prepared. They don't even know their way around. They don't even know what is going on. You know, if I can use my son's word, they are formless. They have no idea what is going on. They can't even find their way to the lecture halls. They'll get lost enough times. Yet, every university has an orientation week, but they don't come. Majority of them don't even come. At that time when you're supposed to be inducted, where is where and who is who at this place, they don't even appear because they don't think it is necessary. The parents don't even know the gate to those universities, like Dr. Gitonga is saying. You're bringing a 17-year-old into a community where the students at any one semester are about 3,000 plus. This is a student who came from a high school where there were about 500, 600. Everything was programmed for them. Do they have the capacity? Are they ready? Are they mature enough? Are they grown up enough to survive? Worse still, they have to move towns. You know, a student who grew up in Murang'a needs to go to Mombasa or Kilifi to the university there. Probably the first time they've been there is the night bus they took on their way to go and report to where they are going. We have students who are coming to universities who do not know why they're there, what is it that is expected of them. They don't even know their way around. Yet, the systems are there at the university. So then, is it a wonder that you have parents coming 4 years later for their graduation only to realize that the student actually dropped out in second year?
And it gives rise to a conflicted student. Now, let's hear it from students that are actually in university as we speak. I mean, just looking at this article that Daisy Okote wrote the other day about, you know, the vices in universities, the drugs, the strikes, the robbery, passion, crimes of passion. I mean, we sit here and we read out this news and we wonder, how did students get to this? What are the challenges that you are facing as we speak? You come from a private university, so you can't say it's just a public affair. It actually is also seen in private universities. So what are the challenges you see students dealing with?
Okay, first you find that we have issues to do with drug abuse, and this is a major issue because you find, given that you're also in a Christian institution, you find there are some of these issues that pop up whereby you find students are found with alcohol within the rooms, and you find this is a major challenge because as student leaders we are always tasked with the responsibility to make sure that this does not happen. But you find when you go closer and speak to these students, you find it is something that they had started long time ago, or it's something that they have been influenced by their peers, and you find they will always argue it out that it's my life. You can't do anything about it. It's my life, you help me. And you find this is one of the factors that really, I think what Margaret is trying to put out, that you find that preparation. Parents think when they leave students to finish Form 4, it's that they will just go ahead and live as adults without following up. And that's why you find most of them have this notion, I can't wait to finish Form 4 and join campus where I can have freedom. That is a very wrong notion in our education system. Secondly, concerns exam cheating. This is rampant, and I think it also comes out from high school level. You find students have always been told about exams. You find the grades are high. For example, in our case, our grades start at 85. A starts at 85 points. And you find students now will have that pressure. Their parents are putting pressure on them. I've taken you to a private school, you have to perform. The lecturers, they're giving them contents. They are telling them to give their term papers, and they have also to perform. So you find all these pressures and stress develops into a mental kind of illness. And I think if we can have a mental awareness in our universities, which is a proposal that I'm giving out, we have a mental awareness kind of program, whereby all student leaders, the non-faculty and the lecturers, and also some of the community members, they are given training on how to handle these mental pressures because you find as students don't go to psychologists, in the universities, and they are counselors. You know why? Because they think that because this counselor is of another age group, they don't understand my issues. So you find that's what makes them not go. In our university, I made like a statistic and asked some students how if they have ever seen the school counselor. And you find, surprisingly, I only got one out of around 50 in number that I sampled. So that was very one thing, and I think it's very important for us to have a mental awareness kind of system in our education system. To touch also a bit, another issue we are facing concerns the issue of peer pressure, and this is a major issue whereby students compare themselves with students from other backgrounds. For example, if I get a friend who is coming from a rich background, I'll try to put myself into that level. I stress my parents to give me school fees, and we've had instances whereby students get school fees from their parents. They decide to go maybe take their girlfriends out, and the others they use for betting, like sport pesa, these issues. And you find when exam period comes in, they run away. They don't know where to go. They can't go home because the parents send school fees. They can't go to the administration because they'll be asked. So they just disappear. And this is something that...
Now, what I'm hearing is that wellness, the total wellness of a student is important. It doesn't matter which level they're in, whether high school or the higher learning institutions. For you, Brightstar Kasyoka, what has kept you focused in as far as, you know, with all this around you, the pressure for exams, the drug abuse, the early pregnancies, the crimes of passion, I mean, the list is endless. What has kept you focused, and what has been working for those that have come out and actually flourished?
Okay, that's a good question. For me, what has kept me focused? I think, as you said, the challenges that people face. I believe in life, the challenges you go through can either build you to be a positive person or to be a negative person. And I'll use a very good example of Obama. Like, I really look up to Obama. Obama grew up without a father, yes? But Obama is one of the best fathers we have in the world. He's with his children, he's writing them letters, he's loving his wife and acknowledging her in public. You cannot say really, until this child grew up without parents, he turned out bad. So I think, and for Obama, he even wrote a book, Epistolary to My Father, which is a clear reflection of his father, A Life Without a Father. And that book really inspires me. So I think when I was a young kid, life built me. I had this accident when I was 2 years, and up to today I have a problem with my right hand, and people don't know. But at that point, my mom wasn't there, and it came to me like Brightstar. If your mom was there, you would have not fallen. You would have gone to hospital and everything would be fine. And I think that one thing straightened me. I was like, okay, fine. Brightstar, you're going to have children in future, and they're going to have the best life. So you have nothing here just to be successful. And I remember even in primary, a lot of students dropped out because it was in a village school. They dropped out, they got married. But for me, I was like, I have to work hard so that this life I've gone through, my child doesn't go through that life. So you see, when you go through challenges, they can build you or build you in a negative way. And I think that's the problem we have in the Kenyan scenario, or Africa at large. Most people let challenge push them in the negative end. So you find yourself in university, you are hopeless, you have financial constraints, you have all this. And then it turns you to drugs, it turns you to sleeping around, it turns you to just be someone who has no focus in life. Because, and I think also the church built me. Like, I've been a godly person, like our pastor down from Mwingi built me to be the person I am. So as for me, I'm a child who has been a result of a community, and I'm an evidence that any child, no matter what you go through, that you can be, because I am. And I look at the situations where we blame the parents, we blame the children, but really sometimes I think it's about the person. It's as you as a person, what are you doing? Like, what are you? I mean, and I think it's also something that we need to teach young people since they are young. That since it doesn't matter the family you come from. It doesn't really matter what you go. If Obama is doing it, Maya Angelou, she was raped. She was done all those kind of things. She was a street worker, but she became great. If I give you examples of these great people, there are so many, but they went through so many life-breaking challenges, but they built it to build them. So I think my life has built me to be the person. And up to today, sometimes I have these life situations that put me down. I'm like, no, Brightstar, your child has to have a good life, so you're going to work hard. And I think that's inner. And also my grandfather, I told you, my grandfather and my grandma, they built me to know that I had to be someone. So the parent, even if you're not the biological parent, even if it's a grandfather, even if it's a community, tell that child you can be anything. Tell that child you will be great. And then that child will not depart from it. It says teach a child ways for the Lord, and when they grow up they will not depart from it. So just tell children, if you meet a child on the street, I love Pussycat because I love kids. If I meet a child today, I'll tell you, you can be great. But that child will not forget. I have kids, university students who I've interacted with, and most of them are suffering from mental health. Why? Because no one around them is believing in them. I think the belief is we all humans, we want people to love us, we want people to affirm us, and if no one affirms us, then we turn out to be, So I think that's one thing I would really advocate for. And then on self-motivation, I think self-motivation is very important. We all get down, we all get bored, we all get hurt, but then go to YouTube, watch. If you're a university student, go to YouTube, watch stories of this great people who are doing great things and know that you can do it. So the hopelessness factor is what affects most students, and that is one thing that we can come. And also I was having a conversation with some of these people who went to school earlier. They had the boom. And that boom, they say it was enough to even pay for their families and their children.
Yes.
And I mean, if you have siblings, you could pay for them school fees and still have money to keep you in university. But come to a Kenyan scenario right now, people are given help. I don't know how much is. I think 35 to 60.
Yeah.
And then the economy keeps on going high.
Yeah.
And this money is not going up. So I mean, if you have 35 shillings. It will not help you as much as it helped another student in 2010. So I think we also need to revive some of these things. If the financial economy goes high, then fine, let's increase the help so that the students can have and then also in the university area, like 24,000, that's what the maximum that job students pay. But that's much money to my students. Like, it's not something they can afford. So we assume simply because the government is paying some amount of money, the students can afford that. But even getting in a university, you need blankets, you need all those kind of shopping. It can go up to 100,000. So how do we ensure these students who have passed from Form 4 to university get into it? Because once you get in the university, it's okay. But that transitioning from high school to university, most students go last year because they don't even have the registration money, they don't have the transport money. I think it's something that we, even the community, not even the government, the people can come together and decide, like, how are we going to help the students? Yes, and then also the housing. Like, students don't have housing, they don't have all those type of stuff. So it's things that comes up from this hopelessness. I'm in university, I don't have anything, I don't have connections, I don't have this, so how am I going to do it? So I think we should just focus on the positive energy, and also mentors needs to be there.
Definitely very inspirational, but I also pick up on the fact that there are no quick fixes to this. We need to listen, we need, again, ask the right questions, and we'll get the right answers. And what you've heard from Edward and Brightstar gives a lot of perspective to what the students are dealing with. And Dr. Gitonga, when we come back, probably you can give us some of the fixes that some institutions can take up to make sure that we take care of the wellness of a student, and so that we are able to offload a whole person into society. And we'll do that right after this break. Kipkalya, who is actually a student leader at Baraton University. We have Dr. Gitonga Siriaka, senior lecturer at Embu University. Brightstar Kasyoka, who is a student leader at Maseno University, and psychologist Margaret Mbuthi. Now, before we went to break, Dr. Gitonga, the question to you was, what are these things that these institutions need to take up to make sure that they take care of the wellness of a student, not only about what brought them to school in terms of education, but to ensure that they take care of them, because this is a preparation to what their life is, to the world out there.
Thank you, Gladys. And I think clearly, just reflecting on what Kasyoka and my friend here has talked about, the challenges the students walk through, I can't help but think about the systems that are already in place in the universities. Any chartered university in this country has got or is required to put systems in place to support student wellness. But the students have said so lightly that students don't access those facilities. Kasyoka has put it very well. It has got to be a personal motivation to get help, because all of us will need help. And so students in the university, I challenge you. Every university I know, at least I know, I've participated in university inspections as a counselor, university counselor. Counseling is for normal people. People who are not very well, especially mentally, they go to see psychiatrists. But every university within every student in the university has a challenge and a good reason to see a counselor. It could be as simple as fear of exams, as simple as not having a meal, as simple as a relationship issue. Many. There isn't a single student in the university who can say, I really don't need a counselor. Every chartered university has got or is required to have chaplaincy of some sort. Places of worship is a requirement. And I know many of us are being made by praise of worship. So a student who is in any university in this country which doesn't have a place of worship should send us a message and tell us ours there is no place of worship. Because how do you deal with yourself? How do you deal with yourself if you cannot find God as a student in the university? Amidst the problems these students have so very well articulated. So every university has a place of worship and has a person responsible. Go to those particular persons. Every university, I'm sure, has a dean of students and a dean of students office, which is very well facilitated. Dean of students are actually supposed to be the fathers and mothers of these students. They are supposed to be telling us, when I mention a student by name, they tell me, oh, that one I know. That one I've been dealt with their issue. But many students live in the universities, and when you ask them who is the dean of students, they have no clue. Really, in the 21st century, you need the dean's office, because that is not academic, it is purely life issues. Accommodation, difficulties you're having with fees, difficulties you're having with the help, that's where you go to talk real life issues. Unfortunately, there are some deans of students who have ended up also being pro-system, as opposed to be pro, and the positive students can expound on that because I'm aware. But at least where I know there is the dean of office, students does that very well. Then the other system that is put in the university, within the hostels, and the students will tell me if it is happening, the students are supposed to have wardens, where you are located. If the university has given you a housing within the university, you're given a janitor or a warden. At least I know janitors are located. The role of the janitor is to ensure that this student is actually sleeping well, where they are staying is okay. Then that system, now supported by academic advisors, supported by, I don't know how to put this, a vice chancellor who is present and loves the students. I'll say something about vice chancellors in this country. Today they have a security team that make sure they are surrounded so very well that you can rarely reach them out. At least I remember at our time, you could meet the vice chancellor and greet them. I've gone to a university where students in the cafeteria eat with their vice chancellor, because it's supposed to be an ordinary academician who loves the students. But now we have a vice chancellors who actually with a whole security team. So students cannot ask, because a vice chancellor is a father or a mother who needs to appreciate and identify the needs of these students at the highest level. So, and I've seen where vice chancellors are available to students. Students can greet them and tell them, sir, I didn't eat. Then that chancellor responds differently from one who pushes the students or push away from them. Then, of course, we have now the other structures, the academic structures that are meant to reach the students. So, I think the other conversation we should have is that, are these systems that are meant to support students operational in universities? Because the levels at which we are hearing the cry for when students start saying mental health issues, that's a big term. When you start saying this, students are having mental health issues, it's a reality because they are interacting with these other students very, very well. So the question is that, are these systems operating? Are they supporting students? Are they open to every student to access so very easily? So that then a student knows, oh, I went for therapy and I loved it. I had a different perspective of my issues. I went to see Dr. Gitonga and she was available for me. My saddest moment, Gladys, is when I mark student scripts. And I get a student who has scored the highest score. And I also get one who has failed. And I don't know them because of numbers. A student has gotten a good A. And another one has gotten a D. But I cannot put a face to this student. As an academician, it's the most depressing thing. Because I need to be able to tell this one who has done very well, but this one who has not done very well, what can I do? I don't know them. I don't know them. So the complexity of what has happened in the last few years about being able to reach out to students and mentor them is something that the ministry and the scholars need to engage. What is the standard number of students a university is allowed to have? When you pride yourself, you have over 50,000 students. My question as a psychologist is that, are you really taking care of the wellness of these students? Are you meeting each student at their need? The answer is likely no. You don't actually know them. You have no attachment to these students. And the moment a system does not have an attachment to their own students, then those students, like they said, you are in a wilderness. Hopelessness creeps in because nobody knows you. Even if I met you on the way, I don't know you. So ideally, really, but to really emphasize, the systems are there. And to go back to Kasyoka's words, students, it is your responsibility. When you define university education, the definition of university education is where knowledge is created and shared. And the people who go to the university to access university education are supposed to have attained a certain level of maturity. So we cannot exempt a student who has decided to go to the university and made choices like Kasyoka said. I made a choice not to thrive, but another one has made a choice to thrive. So while there is a mechanism to support you. So if you really want to be supported, there is support. And I have not seen a student, maybe they are there who have sought help and they are being repelled. We need to hear those kind of testimonies. But I also know students who really go and say, I don't know how to manage this life. I've never lived outside my mother's house. Now I need to rent a house. I've never cooked. I need to be able to cook. Are they there? So really that transitioning, Gladys, we must make sure students take their responsibility. University is university. It's not a kindergarten. It's not. It's not. It's not a kindergarten. It has systems to support you. So the moment you get an admission to the university, you need to ask yourself, what have I just gotten into? And if there is orientation, go for it. And if you don't attend orientation, ask who are the other student support systems. By the way, the student leadership is actually is so very well structured within now the new act that they are supposed to be telling us, we know a student who is struggling. But also the student leadership, and you will tell us, you have also become politicians. It's about how much benefit you are given by the university. You actually fight, unfortunately, for those allowances, and you do not want to also seriously advocate for students who are struggling. Because if student leaders come and say, we are putting everything down to buy pads for these girls because we know they don't have, what kind of leadership is that? Is it transformational? But most of the times you guys are fighting for things that are not understandable. I have interacted with one, just to finish, who has actually applied. He's about to finish, but the fact that his term has come to an end because he only served for 1 year, he has applied to do a diploma so that he can now have another chance to become a student leader. Selfishness that is amazing. It is tearing down. So even the student leaders, you have your role to play. You are a leader because there is something you can give to your to your classmates and your colleagues that is very close. It's not just comrades to throw stones. It's comrades so that we can work together and build one another. And so it's not blaming the system. It's also us. Let's do our part. And also to pray that scholars, academicians like me, will be willing also to do their job. I know we can complain about systems, but I think I know, even if it is on the pathway, I can mentor a student.
I think it's very interesting to hear how even in the politics within the universities is a big reflection of what we see on our televisions on a day-to-day basis. So again, it takes society to bring up a child. Now let's cross over to Margaret Mbuthi. I mean, we've walked this journey of mental health together, and there's one thing that we both know is that, and I think most people know, is that he or she who needs help at times does not know they need help. So are we even sensitizing these students? There is avenues to get help, and there's a difference between somebody who is out of their minds going to seek help as opposed to, as you say, just seeking a conversation and a sounding board.
Okay. Thanks, Gladys. Let me just add something, another system and structure that the universities are strong at that Dr. Gitonga just left out. Every university, whether public or private, they have a health clinic.
Yes, yeah.
And some universities have even fully fledged hospitals where they even do admission and all that. Every university has a student medical cover of whatever nature that is there, and that's a commissioned requirement. Now, in that health clinic or the facility, you have all cadres of staff, and the health clinics at the university are actually headed by a qualified medical doctor. Very qualified medical doctors. You have clinical officers there. You have nurses at diploma level. You have lab techs. You have farm techs. You know, very well functioning and running. Yet, I know today we'll be talking about students who are having certain conditions and illnesses, but they want to go to seek free medical attention at the university hospital. They would rather go to, if you're in Nairobi, you'd rather go to anywhere else than go to your university that has a fully fledged health facility to seek medical help. Now, you're asking the question, are they sensitized? Gladys, yes. The answer is a resounding yes. During the orientation for first years, all these services are highlighted. You have every representative from every department, accommodation, library, the dean of students, the counseling office, and the counselors actually there come to the orientation and they make a presentation and they even tell you where they are. You even know where you even have their telephone number. Let me speak for the university where I am. That gets done. The question is, why don't they come?
The uptake is poor.
Why are they not coming? They know the service is there. It's amazing. You will see a student in second, third year who is just about to be suspended because of exam irregularity or something like that. And then you ask them, oh, by the way, have you ever seen me around here? They're like, no, I've never seen you. Okay, do you know this office exists? No, I don't know this office exists. And you're in your third year. They don't know that exists. So I know, I appreciate his saying that some of those people are not their age. I mean, they look at them and think that these people are rather a bit senior in age, so they won't understand us. When it comes to seeking help, does it matter you're going to see a doctor if you're sick who is 60 years old, or are you going to see the doctor because the doctor has the capacity and is qualified in the specific area? Is age a factor in that sense? Maybe it is not. So why is age a factor when you're going to seek counseling services? And every university, Gladys, in this country, private or public, the minimum qualification for you to be employed as a university counselor, degree holders. So what are we saying? They're competent. They have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have the experience, they have the capacity to deal with that. Most universities have peer educators who is a pool, drawn from a pool of the students, all the way from first years to fourth years. Are the students going to the peer educators? If they're not coming to the psychologists, are they going to the peer educators. And you'll find that university has peer educators who have been trained in HIV, who have been trained in drug and substance abuse and, you know, issues of gender-based violence. But are they really going to one of their own? So if the argument is we are not going to the counselors or the psychologists at the university because they are too old for us, okay, so are you using the peer educators? Are you using the chaplains? I mean, university have clubs and societies. Sports. You have coaches. What are they doing?
I think I need to ask this question at this point. It sounds like there is, and somebody actually highlighted the same on Twitter, some form of anti-systems phenomenon going on. The moment something is classified as such, a department, you know, a movement or something, people or the students or generally a society we shy away from explaining why you'd rather go to a dispensary outside the school as opposed to go to the clinic that is fully fledged in the institution. So the question to the student here is, what is this that makes you repel the systems that are put in place to help you?
Thank you. Good question. First, you find that these students are, I can say it's a generation issue, because you find it's the way we are brought up. Because you find as millennials, you find our generation's views these issues about being sick or being unwell, and most of them you find they check with their peers. If their peers say that I cannot go to a psychologist, why should I go? They're not going to help me. You find it builds in up within the other students and it spreads out. So you find they'll start saying that I went, for example, to the university counselor, and you find the other day I was called by the DVC SAS, who is in charge of academic affairs. And so when that happens, you find now the students will have fear that if I go to the university counselor, you find that the student in charge of the DVC SAS, in charge of student affairs, will be able to know what happened. And you find that now brings in a gap issue, because you find students want to be able to go to them, and instead they will prefer to come to us as their leaders to address their matters. So you find that's one thing. The other issue about what she said concerning that they do enough sensitization, I want to differ a bit. Yeah, the sensitization is there, but it does a proper sensitization is only done once, and that's during orientation, as you said. But you find there are students who don't attend this. There are students who come after the orientation is done. Where do you expect them to know about these services? So I think one of the requirements for proper sensitization is that these students, when they are admitted to the university, you find they should be able to be given at least a leaflet showing that this is where you can be able to get these services if you have mental issues, and this is the person you can be able to contact. By that, we can say we've done enough sensitization, because by the time the students will pick the leaflet, he or she will be able to look at it. If the other students, you find if they put posters around the university strategic positions, students will change their perspective that these people are there to help them.
So it should be a continuous process.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Brightstar, let me reel you in on this. Do you feel as if the institutions put in place have failed you, or have failed some students?
No. For me, no, as a person.
But for the students that you represent and some of the cases you've dealt with, have you come across some that you feel the system has failed them?
Yeah, some of them. Okay, one he said about the VCs being approachable. I think that one I applaud the Maseno University Vice Chancellor. If you are hungry, you just go to his office, you will eat. And yeah. So now I feel actually not really failing the students, but what is there, most students are not aware, and ignorance is the biggest disease anyone can ever have. Because you find, like the way you were saying about orientation, for me I attended the orientation myself. And I remember that counselor saying, you know, if you're in first year, This 4 years they already have girlfriends, and if they take you, they will just leave you after a month. You know, and that kept me like, every time I would see a 4 year, I would stay away. I would run away. And you know, like I think those things that are talked in the orientation are really nice. But then most of the students don't even know that orientation existed. You just hear a microphone and people are talking and the students are just passing idle. And then again there is a hot sun, maybe there are no tents. So now how do you expect people to come and sit for hours in a place where they're being burned by the hot sun? So I think also it's something that we should prepare students as they come to university. I think in the calling letter, I think you should indicate that there will be an orientation in the first week. Most of the students don't know of this orientation.
It is there.
It's there? Okay. So most of them don't even, I think they don't even read the letters. So the thing is, most of this institution, even like the university dispensaries and the dean of departments, they are functional, but they only serve the students who go there. You know, like the dean will not go and look for a student somewhere. They will not just, I mean, we are like over 20,000. How do you expect the dean to go and look for the students? So most of the students in university premises don't even, and also some of them come exam time. They just come in exam time. There are no hostels. There are no hostels in the university. So you have to leave very fast. So the only time you will appear is exam time. So how will you know how the system is working? You know, so I think actually, okay, maybe there are some which are not functional in some, like the university dispensaries, most of the time they don't even have the facilities. So if you go there, you have to be sent away to go buy medicine somewhere else. I think that one can be worked on in most students, and I've been interacted with most student leaders and they say the same thing, like they don't have facilities. But other than that, I think the ignorance is the biggest thing. And when a student, you find even a student in that year doesn't know, even 4th year doesn't know, because really, and also, as you said about exam cheating, we make the institution of university be it's all about passing exams. So people don't really take it with so much seriousness. Like, I'm just going there, if I still find, I can remove my phone and Google, you know. So, why should I go and know much about that? And especially if it's in Maseno, it's very far. So why should I go stay there and then I'm just going to do exams? So it's not that interactive as it's supposed to be. So, yeah, that's one challenge, the ignorance part of it. And then, yes, I feel it's the way you said it, Gladys, it's all about the community. Like, it's an interaction with all of us. What if we all told the next student, you do know that the dean of, because like the dean of student will help students. If a student goes and they don't have food, the dean of students will help. But the most 90% of the students don't even know the dean of student exists. And also this thing we put on titles, if someone is like a vice chancellor, like you feel it's a very big name, you know, like, but surely these are human beings who are just in a positions of institutions, and they should, like, so now also I think we have the students, most of the students, they are very you know, some of them come from the villages and places where they've not been exposed. So campuses is supposed to work as a place to expose them. Then they come there, there's no other even proper guidelines on how to go about it. So even like even if you become a student leader, you find a student who is also in that, they're telling you, oh, Mweshimiwa, you know, like they view these things like they are on the other side of the world and you are on this other side of the world. So I think also that sensitization, and I mean, as the students come to university, even the parents learn. Like for me, if I need help from you, Gladys, I'll call you, and you know that I will call you and ask you, Gladys, I need this and this. But the students don't even have that courage to call someone. You know, Gladys is in NTV, so I can't call Gladys.
That's a very good point, Dr. Gitonga. Is there a lack of a good, healthy relationship between students and the administration?
I really appreciate what the students are saying because it's a reality. And is it a relationship issue, or it's what she's defining as an unexplained gap, which you don't understand why? Is it because of the way we are presented ourselves even as administrators, so that we are in pedestals and the students are not able to access us? I think these are issues for interrogations. And I've sat in student meetings and they actually say it's so difficult to access the system because of the way it is structured. But I think not to miss the point, what we are looking at here is that why is it that the students are finding it difficult to access these systems? Because again, as they said earlier, Gladys, we have betrayed the system. We were in that responsibility because, like, if a student comes to me and is in need of help, then that student needs to be sure that I will actually be involved in their story. and I'm interested in their existence as students in the university. The way we package that as institutions, as leaders, as educators is so important. So the student will know, if I go to see the counselor, because of the testimony I had from another student, I know I'll be helped. Therefore, that packaging and presenting the support we need to have ought to be very clear. It is true, there are some universities that have not gotten it very right with the student administration relationship, but many of them are putting effort. I haven't seen a university leadership that has trashed student issues. They possibly will take time to address most of them, but then there isn't any, in my view, that or that does not respond to student issues. And if we're going by what the two students have said, that the student, how do you treat ignorance in a university student? That I'm wrestling with. How do you treat the spirit of ignorance in a person who passed Form 4 and came to the university? It does not matter whether because my mother, who never went to school, can find her way in this Nairobi. Ataenda kiuliza. How is it that a student? I struggle with that. Because I have told students in the university, you are a university student. Please speak to me as such. Don't use sheng when you want me to address a serious issue. Let us talk formally, because when you go outside there, you won't be speaking formally. Don't come to me if you are looking for something formal. Like sometimes we engage students and tell them, I want to engage you in my project. But the way the student comes to you, you are thinking, your personal presentation, even the way you come to class, shouldn't be able to tell me you are preparing for a world that is cut for a level of people like you. So that ignorance, the students must tell us, what is the recipe? Mwanafunzi, a student who really knows there is a dean of students, you need to go. There is a facility here which is paid for substantially by the government and by the university. You prefer to go to buy medicine in a kiosk. Really? Let's also return the back where it belongs. Any student other than Brightstar here went to the university at about 6:15. The rest are going to the university at 17. Yes. In some countries, at 17, you are supposed to take care of yourself. You're supposed to move out. Really, I think the way we are, because I really don't want to look at them as babies. I'm a child psychologist. By the time you get to that level, there are certain things that we expect you to have achieved. And I know, she told me there are some who won't have achieved those milestones. Those ones we shall support. But are you aware you are lacking something? Because if you are not aware, as you said, in mental health, are we now so who are there able to say, oh, this student is okay, but there is a gap. And now we put mechanisms in place to support this student achieve, because that's the only way we are going to achieve. But the bottom line is, when you are admitted to the university, ask yourself, go ask Mr. Google, what is a university? And prepare yourself to fit in the university. Because the systems in the university, they say they won't come to you. You've got to go and knock the door and get help. Our universities, you knock, my university, knock my door, I'll open, because I know I'm making a greater person than me.
So a lot of personal initiative is important. Now, Margaret, there's something that Edward touched on. When you go and be vulnerable to that person in administration, then you hear your business around the campus deters a lot of these students and creates the gap between the students and the systems that are put in place. What can be done to make sure that that gap is bridged?
I see, as I sit here as a psychologist, that's really sad. Hearing that is very sad about my colleagues in the profession. And I'll tell you this. The instances when, as a psychologist, you're supposed to talk to someone else. For example, if you're talking about a student, if you really, if there are issues that pertain on life and death and that kind of a thing, or a student who's really, really struggling with fees and, accommodation and other things, that way now you can talk to the dean of students, but with a view to help. But it should never be that you came and shared with me, and so now I have your story to go and tell everyone else. That betrays the trust. It's very unfortunate if that is happening, especially from my colleagues in the profession. That should never happen. And it's not, psychologists don't go talking about people and their problems. Trust me, if they did, then everything would be out there. You would know anyone and everyone and what is happening to them. Trust us that we keep things in confidence unless their boundaries of when that can happen. We will talk to your parents, because if you're struggling with issues, you know, like we see students who come, Gladys, from extremely vulnerable backgrounds where they don't even have food, they don't even have anything. I'll reach out to your parent and I'll talk to your parent. I'll go to the Dean of Students to find how can we support this student. Those instances will be there. But even whoever I go to talk to is under shared confidentiality. It shouldn't be the story that is going to spread in the entire university. I want to encourage the students, please, go to the Dean of Students office for anything non-academic and sometimes academic. That's where the help starts and stops. It's the Dean of Students office. The university councillors are in the Dean of Students office. If there is one person at the university, you should have their telephone number. It is the Dean of Students. He has the capacity, or she, to mobilize anyone and everyone within that university to get things happen. And to the parents, don't look at the height. Look at the individual child you're sending to the university. Do they have the skills? Are they responsible? And is this the child to send to Maseno, or is this the child, because I live in Kitui, to keep to a campus in Kitui? Don't just send them because they were admitted to go to Baraton. Can you make that assessment and identify, is my child ready and prepared for Baraton, or would I rather keep my child in Chuka because that's where I live? The other thing that really struggles students at the university, we have lots of them who didn't qualify for courses of their choices. Their number one choice. Can you work with that student? And the academic advisors are there, and the heads of departments are there to mentor you, to guide you, to even help you move from one department to another. Talk to them. That's why they are there.
Well, a great conversation we've had this morning. Edward, thank you for your time. Dr. Gitonga, Brightstar, and Margaret. And just to make a note that Edward and Brightstar actually traveled from their respective universities overnight to make it for this show this morning. Thank you for your effort, and thank you for also being part of this very important conversation, and it will keep continuing. And of course, remember, that's on Twitter, and we'll also keep following up on the same, and even as we put to task those stakeholders that are involved in this. Well, that has been NTV today. I bid you farewell for now. I'll be joining you again at 1 p.m. with the day's top stories. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Have a good morning.